having a conversation on something very, very important as usual. And if you've ever found yourself wondering how to fund your business without a bank loan, if you felt stuck because capital feels out of reach, or if you are ready to explore new ways of growing your business in this fast changing economy, you are in the right place this morning. Our topic today is funding your business in 2025, alternative strategies beyond traditional methods. And to help us unpack this rich conversation, I'm joined by someone who lives and breathes business growth, a strategist, a mentor, and a guide to many entrepreneurs across the African continent. His name is Edison Shumba, and he's a business development coach. And he's joining us this morning for this conversation. Edison, good morning.
Morning, Nii. How are you?
I am well. Good to have you on the Business Breakfast on Z.
No, it's a privilege to be here.
Great, great, great. And we're talking about funding this morning, a very important subject. How important is this?
No, funding is the bloodline of any business.
Mm,
It's the oxygen of the business. So no funding, no business, basically. It's the activator, it's the catalyst to anything or when it comes to business.
mm. Right, but a lot of people say, I mean, and this is not largely. We'll get into our conversation. I just want to pick your thoughts on a few things. People say
Yeah.
that you don't need money to start business. So how do we reconcile that?
So you don't need money to start business, but you certainly need money to move it from A to B.
Mm,
So you don't need money to get in, to have an idea, but you certainly need money to pick an idea to uh, to another stage. So you don't want to just have an idea, but you definitely need money to actually grow the business.
mm. I see. Okay. All right. Anyway, that was just by the way. So let's get into it. Even proper. First of all, we're talking about funding in 2025? What does funding your business in 2025 really mean in today's business environment?
Yeah. So speaking with regards to entrepreneurs themselves, funding or having finance
Mm,
is not a child's play when it comes to how do you raise or how do you get capital. Basically, it's a very challenging environment, especially here in Africa. As you know, our banks or our traditional methods are very risk averse. They need collateral, which entrepreneurs mostly they don't have. They need securities for which entrepreneurs don't have. So with that risk averse attitude and culture, there is no way that it's very, very, very difficult for entrepreneurs to gain capital.
mm. But how has the funding landscape changed over the years, over the last, say, 5 years?
Yeah, so if you look at the backbone of funding has always been the banks,
Mm,
right? So banks are the traditional methods, right? But if you look at entrepreneurship or startups or the top startups, you look at um, angel investments, you look at VC capital, you look at private equity, which are more flexible or agile ways of raising money. We can also look into, for example, crowdfunding platforms, which are more flexible ways. So we have moved from the rigid ways of raising money to the more flexible ways of raising money.
mm,
Um, there has been a paradigm shift basically from that formal rigid to now flexible forms of capital, which is angel investments, crowd platforms, VC capital. So
mm.
that has been basically the paradigm shift.
Mm. I see. We'll take it one after the other and try to break them down. I've heard you
Yeah.
mention the angel investors, which and VC, and also crowdfunding. We'll look at all of that very very soon. But why is it important to consider alternative fund options now more than ever?
Yeah, so basically, the importance stems from the fact that, like I said, the banks are risk averse. All right. The getting a loan as an entrepreneur, as a startup, is not is close to impossible, basically, right?
Mm.
But banks they're not built to lose money, right? They're built for invest in money that they're confident that it's going to come back, basically.
Yeah.
So it's a very it's a very complex subject
Mm.
for entrepreneurs to enter the traditional ways of raising money. Basically, uh, they have to look for other alternative sources of funding, which then is to be aspects like angel investments.
Mm. How common are these? You mentioned crowdfunding, angel investors, VC, and all of that. How common are these in the African? I mean, on the African continent?
How common are they? I think we have seen a growth when it comes to the African startup ecosystem themselves. We've also seen the joint accelerators and incubators partnership between Europe and Africa, USA and Africa, whereby, for example, you have startup accelerators or boot camps like startup bootcamp, MEST. I think in Ghana you guys have MEST. We also have, for example, VC4A. They are. It's not. It's still not a mature industry, but you can see that there has been a proliferation of boot camps, of accelerators that entrepreneurs can actually tap into when it comes to this.
Mm. I see.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. But, I mean, you work with a lot of businesses. What are the common mistakes people make when they are looking for funding?
Yeah. So, okay. So perhaps let's look into how do you restructure a business model for alternative finance for alternative financing, basically.
Mm. Sure.
One of the things is that you have to make sure that you formalize your operations and governance. All right. So you don't go and look for funding when you haven't formalized your operations or you don't have proper governance in place. All right. So registration, we're talking about basic intellectual property registration, right? That's number one. Then when you also look into the startup world, you have to also consider issues, for example, on of scalability. Is your idea scalable? All right. Is there repeatability to such an extent that if I launch something today in Ghana, I can also launch that something in South Africa, or I can launch something in Kenya. All
Mm.
right. And also, I mean, how do you actually create revenue stream with the idea that you have, right? So ideas are by dozens, but then how do you implement and how do you actually have multiple revenue streams towards that idea? Have you Do you have a clear value proposition that customers are willing to their ability or is their willingness to pay on your idea, basically, right?
Mm.
So that's very important, right? So most entrepreneurs or most startups, they create products and they fall in love with the product instead of the problem, and that's in itself is a challenge because at the end of the day, you forget the issue of desirability or the issue of willingness to pay, which is very important because you want your product or you want your tech to be adopted and you want it to you want to have revenue towards it. Basically, you want people to adopt and to pay for it for you
Mm.
to have a successful business. So there are a few mistakes that um, entrepreneurs or small business have to take into cognizance.
Mm. I see. And a lot of people don't have these things in place, right?
Yeah, correct, correct.
Mm. I see. And so, how is it costing them? Does it mean that okay, more people are not getting funding because of these things?
Yeah, of course. So it's part of it's part of building investor confidence. So we're speaking about alternative financiers, right?
Yeah.
So we're saying, okay, we have banks as the traditional methods, but now we want angel investment. We want to attract investors. We want to build investor confidence, right? And to do that, there are few things that we have to make sure that we have. So, for example, I spoke about desirability or willingness to pay, or measure, actually research the market to measure desirability or willingness to pay. So things like user customer validation, build investor confidence, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't have that, or if you don't show early traction, early users or pilots or sales or early customers, basically, then your ability now to investor confidence will become shallow. I don't know if I'm in
Yeah.
regards to that.
Yeah, I think I get it because at the center of all of this is investor confidence. Once the investors believe in what you're doing, then indeed they will put their money there. But if they don't, they won't. Right? Is that right?
Correct. Yes, correct.
Okay, great. So if you just tune in, this is Business Breakfast on Z101.9 FM with me, Nitrebi Hammond, and I'm having a conversation with Edison. Edison is a business development coach, and he's helping us understand what alternative funding strategies or sources are beyond the traditional methods of raising funds for your business. A very important conversation. If you want to join the conversation, I would love to hear from you. You can send me a WhatsApp on 0544321019, 0544321019, and then I'll give you the opportunity to share your thoughts with us. You can call us on that number or you can send us a WhatsApp and then we will give you that opportunity. You can ask your questions, your comments, anything, contribution you want to make. Just feel free and send me a WhatsApp, 0544321019. We are streaming live on Facebook at ZFMGH and also on YouTube at Z Multimedia. Please do well to engage our posts there, and then we will read your comments for you as well. Okay, so let's talk about mindset and strategy actually before we come to the types, the business funding types that you talked about. Let's talk about mindset. How should entrepreneurs today rethink the idea of money and growth?
Okay, come again.
I'm asking that how should entrepreneurs rethink the idea of money and growth?
Yeah, so in a business sense, the whole idea is that how do I develop a global brand, right? Or how do I build a brand? When you start with a vision, right? How do you quickly turn that vision into traction? Is the correct mindset that every entrepreneur, every small business has to have, right? Because an investor or a financier does not fund an idea, but they fund traction, basically, right? So if you have a channeled vision to think in a way that how do I convert whatever vision that I have into a traction within a very short period of time, in that way you find out that you accelerate your progress basically when it comes to business. So it's how do you positively fine tune yourself to implement and to execute as fast as you can and turn your idea into traction in a very short period of time.
Wow. Well, no, but what mindsets blocks do you see preventing people from exploring new funding strategies? What are some of the things that you see in terms of their mindset?
I think it has to do with lack of knowledge, basically. So not all entrepreneurs have access to knowledge or access to mentorship or access to being incubated, right? So it's all about have you been empowered as an entrepreneur? Because some of this people know that the e-startup bootcamp is missed. Someone haven't told you that they do exist. So I think it's not necessarily the mindset, but it's also about the lack of empowerment sometimes and the lack of knowledge, basically.
So more people are not aware of some of the funding strategies that are available, and that is why they are able to raise funds. Okay, so for entrepreneurs, of course, and that would mean that a lot more research, trying to read around the things you're doing, read around funding sources and all of that, and not limit yourself to just the traditional methods of doing that. Okay. But sometimes entrepreneurs do give up quickly when they hear no from investors and from banks, and so there are businesses that have crashed because somebody, because they pitched the business idea and it didn't get the funding that it needed. What do you have to say about that?
So for me, in my books, it's giving up um, is a process, all right? But within its process, there's something that we call pivoting, all right? I don't believe that entrepreneur has to really give up, but might need to pivot. Because so, for example, if you have a business idea and you don't manage to raise, you don't manage to bootstrap your way. So when you talk about bootstrapping, we're talking about saving to actually finance your business itself up until certain extent that you are able to raise. Because remember, most of these ideas, the reason why they fail is that it's either they don't have capital or they are not adopted by customers. So those are
Mm.
most reasons why most business fail, right? They're not adopted by customers, or they haven't been financed to actually grow themselves, right? So in any way, when you look into it itself, the giving up part, it's quite very easy to give up,
Mm.
um, because you don't have um, you don't have the oxygen, or you don't have the bloodline in terms of the cash to actually move your business from A to B. But not having that is also subject to, have you were you able to gain traction on that business, right? Were you able to drive that business from A to B, or have you ever grown customers, or have you have the first 100 customers? Because if you don't have the first 100 customers, then you're not necessarily not going to be able to raise alternative finance. So giving up um, is is okay, but in the form of pivoting. That's in my books.
Mm. I see. So,
Yeah.
so what do you tell clients who think that they need funding before they can start? I know we tried to touch on that when we started the conversation. What do you tell them?
No, you don't need funding to start, but you need an idea to start. All
Mm.
right. So you need a channel vision to start, but not necessarily funding. But you also, however, when you have your idea, you also need to have a plan to finance that idea. All right. So at the end of the day, when you're on your draw board, right, you're looking at, number one, you're looking at the idea itself, but you're also looking at how am I going to grow this idea from A to B, and for you to grow that idea from A to B, you need to finance somewhere somehow. So you gotta have also have the plan in place way ahead.
Mm. Okay. Right. Right. Okay. Let's get into the meat of our conversation this morning, and we'll talk about the angel investors. We'll also talk about the crowdfunding, and then maybe we'll look at some other things that you have to share with us this morning. So let's start with the angel investors and venture capital. Really, what makes, okay? First of all, maybe if there's someone listening to us who don't know what angel investors are, maybe briefly you can just tell us what they are, then we can get into it.
Yeah, so basically angel investors are a group of people, so it can be you or me, that are willing to invest in a very early stage startup. So most angel investors are people that invest in only an idea. So an idea that most most probably it hasn't really grown, or it hasn't really reached any stage when it comes to, for example, you have zero sales basically, but then they believe in you, and then they put money on your business to say, okay, I believe in your business, I believe in your pitch, I believe in the problem and solution statement, and you have developed rapport with me, so I'm going to fund your business.
Mm. Okay.
Your investors.
Okay, they are the angel investors, and How about venture capital before we continue?
Okay, so VC now comes, perhaps put them after angel investors. So VC capital um, are investors that comes in mostly within seed your seed stage. After you probably have got some customers or you already have some traction, and now they're saying, okay, let's put this money, and on this money that you're gonna, this fund that you're gonna put in money, we expect that within 5 or 10 years we're going to retain this much.
Mm.
So those are your VC or your venture capital.
Mm. Great. All right. So what makes a business attractive to angel investors? What makes a business attractive to them?
Yeah. So like I said, building your investor confidence is a key part of making your business or your idea attractive. So number one, develop a very strong brand identity, right? The number two, you have to make sure you show early traction. You show your users, you show your sellers, you show your pilots, right? Um, what we call user customer validation, basically, right? You also document your key metrics. So, for example, you have things like your customer acquisition cost, your lifetime value, the retention. Just know your unit economics. Those are some of the things that boost investor confidence and that will make you attractive for
Mm.
any angel investment or its venture capital.
One would think from your explanation earlier about the angel investors that
Yeah.
they will come on board even if you don't have anything to show. Maybe you just probably have some idea that you think that is a beautiful idea. So you don't have financials like you're mentioning. You don't have all the things that you're mentioning now for to boost investor confidence. But they want to come in on board. Is that what it means?
Look, no, no. It's you know when it comes to Africa, you must know that we don't have much angel investors. Yes, we do have angel investment networks, but funding is a huge problem, right? So you have to make sure that, for example, you have crafted very clear value proposition before
Mm.
you go to an angel investor. And mostly, yes, they do invest in pre-seed, but mostly right now, if you look into the market, they look into also the traction, right? How many users have you have? You also look into, for example, skin in the game. How much money have you put in the business? How much money have you bootstrapped yourself? And and from the money that you've bootstrapped or from your skin in the game, how much have you managed to uh, 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 gain when it comes to, for example, in terms of your sales, and then they will come in. So it's quite a process, and you must also understand that our African market is still very risk averse, even though we call them angel investors, but it's still very risk averse.
Mm. So they are quite cautious investing in businesses,
Yes,
isn't it?
yes, correct.
Mm. All right. So I don't know if do you see different well maybe are angel investors in different African countries different from themselves in any way?
You mean, for example, an angel investor in Africa and angel investor in Europe?
Yes.
I think it's all about scarcity. I do believe that we don't have much angel investors here in Africa. We're investing in Africa as compared to, for example, mature markets like Europe or USA, where there is a proliferation of angel investments.
Mm.
Um, you find that the, the number of entrepreneurs that actually manage to have angel investments in Africa are way a fraction as compared to that in Europe or
Mm.
in American markets.
Right. But even within Africa, so say South Africa, Kenya, do you see some difference in various countries or it cuts across that generally we don't have enough angel investors or it changes from country to country?
No, it does cut across. So you can see that there are like African markets that are very doing very well, right? So we're talking about the Kenyan market, we're talking about the South African market, we're talking about Nigerian market, we're talking about the Egyptian market. There are those are markets that have done well when it comes to leveraging networks and platforms and have accelerators that the partner European African communities that actually have they are visible and there are also entrepreneurs there that have done very well, for example, in terms of when it comes, for example, sectors like fintech, logistic, there are,
Mm.
have actually done very well. We talk about Nigeria. We have a lot of unicorns that have come from Nigeria. So all those markets, you can see the way they have matured now are way better than other markets. For example, a
Mm.
market like Mozambique, or a market like Zimbabwe, or a market like Namibia.
Mm. And what are the factors influencing that?
Yeah, so it's a matter of where the success is coming from, right? So if you look at the unicorns, if you look at it in general terms, we have a lot of unicorns, for example, in Nigeria. We have unicorns that have come from South Africa. So all those unicorns are all senders or attraction to major investments from outside or major FDIs from outside, which means that the market, will look into it and say, okay, so if we invest more in this community, or if we invest more in this South African market, then there's still a likelihood that the probabilities, it's a game of probabilities that uh, we will perhaps have another unicorn that comes from that market.
Mm, okay, and that is what makes so. There's a lot African governments have to do, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, correct, correct.
Mm. I see. All right. Anyway, so what kinds of returns do angel investors typically expect?
Yeah, so with angel investment, remember it's pre-seed. So mostly um, they invest based on equity, right? So for example, when you have your own idea, you have your own business, you own that business or idea 100%, right? So as an angel investor, I come in and say, okay, I'm going to invest $100,000 in your business, and I'm going to retain 10% of your equity. All right. So that mostly when it comes to angel investments, they're all mostly they're equity based, and you're looking at investments at a very longer in a very longer run. But what you're looking at now is equity based on what you can pump into the business, whether it's
Mm.
it's a it's a, it's a, it's a $20,000. Also, remember on pre-seed, the issue of valuation of how do you value a business is very vague. It's still very artistic. Hence why most angel investors look into equity rather than necessarily returns. So their returns are in the form of the equity that they want to retain
Mm.
from.
Mm. I see. But I mean, you talk about equity. How much equity is too much to give away?
Okay, so just it depends at what stage are you in terms of your business, right? So I mean, you want to, for example, when you're still starting your business, right? You want to raise a certain amount um, and give a certain equity to such an extent that in subsequent years or in subsequent times you are able to actually raise. Because remember, as you raise, you keep diluting, right? So you keep
Mm.
diluting your your business as you raise. So at the end of the day, you don't want to give away, for example, more than more than 20% at the start of your angel on your angel round, right? So on your angel round, you want to keep things simple. You want to raise less, and you want to prove traction and be able to now have leverage in terms of raising more money on a lesser equity or a lesser percentage.
Mm. Let's stay a bit longer on equity. Can you explain how equity deals, I mean, work exactly in plain terms? Can you explain that for us?
Yeah. So when it comes to business ideas, the issue of equity or, or how do I take from your business when I put money is very artistic, right?
How do you
It's an
mean?
artistic, yeah, right. It's artistic in a way that okay, for example, depending on the market that I'm investing in. So for example, if it's in fintech, like if you have got a fintech idea, I look into it. I have to look into, for example, other fintech companies that have done well or that are doing well. What are their valuations? I have to also deduce, for example, the risk that is involved, that you're still starting. I have to look into your team. I have to look into the whole problem solution statement. How unique is your idea? What's your USP? And all those factors will now contribute to say, okay, do how much am I willing to give this entrepreneur, and how much am I willing to take from the entrepreneur? And then it's also obviously it's a balanced equation also in terms of the entrepreneur, whether the entrepreneur also want to give that certain bits. But you can see that at a very pre-seed level, or at a level of business, it's still very artistic. But then as you move on now, as you gain traction, now you now then using other methods of evaluation that are more scientific, and that will then give you a very scientific evaluation in terms of how much the business is worth. That's basically how then you calculate equity, or the percentage of business that you can take out of the money that you've put in the business.
Mm. And what are some of the red flags? What are some of the red flags to look out for when dealing with angel investors?
So one of the things that you look into is that most there's a lot of fraud and there's a lot of scams. So one of the things that you look into is there's no angel investor or one investor on your business who will start to by saying, "Can you pay me money or uh, consulting fee?" You know,
Hmm.
or hear that. I mean, you are looking for money, and then someone is asking you a consulting fee. What is the consulting fee for? When I'm looking for money, so that's some of the red flags that you have to look into. Say, okay, no, this is not an angel investor, right? And you have to also do your proper research. When you look into an investor, what they have researched, what are the sectors, what sectors do they research? Do they invest?
Hmm.
And what's am I in as an entrepreneur? And then also, what stage do they invest? And what stage also am I in? You understand? So those are some of the things that you have to look into. And before basically you raise, right? Yes, it's good to look for money, but also look for rapport. Like, so build rapport with the fund. Get to know the investor, get to know the vision, get to know where they're coming from, and then um, you will be able to raise from that individual with clarity.
Hmm. Okay. Well, exactly 34 minutes after 9. This is Business Breakfast on Z. If you just tuned in, this is a roundtable discussion, and we're having a conversation with Edison Shumba. Edison Shumba is a business development coach, and he's helping us understand what alternative funding sources or strategies are in these times beyond the traditional methods. And that's a very important conversation because we believe that a lot of young people or a lot of people who are into business today struggle to raise funds to scale up their businesses. And that's why we're having this conversation. I would love to hear from you. Please send me a WhatsApp text on 0544321019, 0544321019. Or you can call me on 030395661, 030395661, and then I give you the opportunity to share your thoughts with us this morning. If you have questions, feel free to reach out and we'll give you the opportunity. We're streaming live on Facebook at ZFMGH. ZFMGH on Facebook and also Z Multimedia on YouTube. So please do well to engage our post on those platforms as well. And we will read your comments and questions for you. Okay. I think we've done a lot of things. We said a lot of things about angel investors, really. So Edison, let's shift our attention to venture capital. When is the right time to seek venture capital and when is it too soon?
Okay, so it's when you don't have traction or when you don't have your first 100 customers, then it's too soon for you to raise venture capital, right? Because venture capital, they don't fund ideas, but they fund momentum. Where they see momentum, and the momentum has to be fast-paced momentum, right? So they look into scalability. How fast are you growing? How many users do you have? What's the rate of adoption? So when you put those things together, that's when you say, okay, I do have a business that can be able to raise a VC. So you need to have very good traction, basically.
Okay. All right. But once you have the traction, you're building the momentum. That means that you can just go in for venture capital.
Yes, correct.
Okay. All right. Sorry, permit me to take you back to the angel investors. Where do we find them?
Okay, so angels are people, right? And people find people they trust. All right. So don't jump in with I need money, or instead you have to build relationship, right? So when you look into the African market, so for example, in Ghana, I know there's Ghana Angel Network. In South Africa here, we also have other angel networks, right? We also have platforms like, for example, VC4A, Venture Capital for Africa, where you are able to just load your business idea or look for a mentor who's actually an investor already, and basically try to build relationship with business with business angel investors, right? So first you have to research them. What sectors do they invest? What's their style? Then create perhaps a short pitch deck that clearly shows your problem, your solution, and ask. And be very specific. When you're raising, for example, you want to raise, for example, $25,000 to onboard 5,000 users. Right. So when you go into a platform or an angel network platform, be very specific, because what angels are looking for, they're looking for clarity, they're looking for coachability, and they're also looking for a very strong founder market fit. So if you are passionate and prepared, you will certainly stand out in these platforms.
Okay, so a lot more research will also help you to get them.
And I think one of the areas also that we are finding angels right now is crowdfunding platforms, right? So we have many crowdfunding platforms. For example, the Go.
We will talk a bit more about crowdfunding very soon. I just wanted us to stay on the angel investors and venture capital for a few minutes before we come into that. Now, let's say you've already scaled, or you started scaling your business. You're doing quite well, and then maybe you want to scale, and you go in for venture capital. I also want to repeat the question that I asked about the angel investors. How much equity is too much to give away in that regard? Is it the same 20%?
It's just depending on the runway that you want to raise. I mean, it depends how much you raise will determine the equity that you will be prepared to give away, right? Well, it's scientific, right? You look into, okay, I want to run my business. I want to have a runway for 12 months, right? And in these 12 months, I need this much in terms of this is how much I'm going to be burning each and every month, right? That will determine how much you want to raise, right? And how
Mm.
much you want to raise is what will also determine how much you would be willing to give. The more
Right.
you raise, the more you're going to give,
Mm.
right?
Okay.
Right. So it's a very it's subjective, and it's also very scientific in any way in terms of strategy. But what I encourage many entrepreneurs is that, right, don't raise money that you don't need, right? Raise to gather momentum, raise to build traction, right? So the raise money that enables you to prove traction, such that, because by the time you prove traction, your business valuation is not as the same as it was before. So then that means your valuation at that point of time will be much more better. That means you won't give away much equity as compared to when you were before, or pre-attraction stage.
Right. Okay. Okay. So now we understand angel investors and venture capital. Let's turn our attention to crowdfunding, which is one of the things that you mentioned. How does that work? How does crowdfunding work, and what are the key steps?
Yeah, so crowdfunding basically, so we have many platforms of crowdfunding, crowdfunding platforms. So basically, these are platforms whereby individuals are able to invest in an individual, um, via via a network or via an association of many people, right?
Mm.
So, for example, uh, platforms such as Go Get Fund, right? It's a crowdfunding platform, right?
Yeah.
For small businesses, right? You will see that there are various angel investors there. Like I said, angel investors are people, right? That want to invest in a very small tickets, right? So, for example, I want to put $500 in a business. I want to put $100 or 1,000. So those are very small tickets, but then an multiplier effect or compounded or accumulative, you see that it's a whole lot of money that you can be able to raise through a platform, right? So the idea is you go and register on a platform, then you fill in details in terms of what business do you want to do and what's your target rates, right? You also have to mention what do you want to use the money for, basically, and then people who are then interested um, in investing in that business will then put money, and every cent there has a form of return in terms of potential returns from the business itself.
Hello.
Yes, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, I can hear you. Okay.
Yeah.
So with that said, so it means that do you see a lot of people using crowdfunding in Africa?
Yes, yes. So if you go to most of these crowdfunding platforms, you see that there are people already raised. So usually they advertised, for example, that okay, so and so business have raised their 1 million target.
Okay.
So and so, but it's just that sometimes, crowdfunding, raising on crowdfunding is a process itself, right? So it's a
Mm.
science in itself that needs a lot of marketing, that needs a lot of investments in terms of videography, in terms of convincing people, in terms of putting a team together. So it's a whole lot of process itself, yeah. It's not as easy as just putting an idea up and then people just start putting money on you. It doesn't work that way, but it's a process itself.
Mm.
So you find that when you go in the platforms, you are able to see the business that they've raised, and perhaps look into strategy and a mission strategy to in order to raise whatever that you are aiming for.
Mm. So technically, how long does it take to be able to raise fund? What is a realistic duration or timeline to be able to raise on some funds on through crowdfunding?
It depends with so you see there's some people that go on crowdfund when their business is already doing well. So you find out those businesses raise much faster than idea, right? So you see that business perhaps is a tech platform or is an e-commerce platform that is already have traction or that they already have sales. It goes back again. To attract capital, you need to show that there's real interest or there's testimonies.
Mm. Yeah.
There is case studies to that. So the more you show those things, the shorter the shorter period you take when it comes to raising itself.
Right.
But the more it's more still vague, it's still an idea, then the less chances of you raising within a short period of time. Sometimes you might not actually be able to raise on that crowdfunding platform at all. You understand?
Mm.
So you see that you have a target of 1 million, but you don't raise anything, or you raise a very small, substantial amount of money.
Okay. I see.
Yes.
All right. So let's also talk about whether it's a something. I mean, something that always succeeds, because I know that sometimes crowdfunding campaigns do fail. What are the biggest reasons they fail?
It's poor planning. I do believe it's poor planning, and also it's timing. Like I said, it's this is a science. When I say it's science, I say that there are inputs that you put in terms of your planning. There are resources that you need to have in terms of your planning, and then there's a process in terms of how do you market the plan, who do you speak to, uh, do you have a network for example, angel investors or people that are actually interested in investing in that business? Because what a crowd platform does to you is that it gives you visibility,
Mm.
right? It gives you visibility, but then you also have um, to accelerate that process, to ensure that you are visible, right? And
Yeah.
to do that, it takes strategy, it takes resources, and sometimes it actually needs money, to actually crowdfund. You don't crowdfund without money, and then because the next thing you crowdfund, you don't sponsor it, the platform, you don't speak to people, you don't reach to as many people as you must reach, then that means there is a probability that you're going to fail in terms of raising itself.
Oh, okay. I get it. So, I want to pick your thoughts on this one, and this is a very open question. I just want to hear your thoughts. Do you think that crowdfunding should be equity based, reward based, or donation based? Is it?
Okay, so if it's okay, if it's a socially oriented um, idea, so for example, an idea for a cause, then I feel like it can be donation oriented. But if it's a profit making oriented business, then surely when I put my money there, I'm expecting a return, right?
Mm,
So it depends on the nature of business. If I see that you're doing a business that in the next 2 3 years you're gonna make money out of it, then I mean I'm expecting that my dollar maybe tomorrow is gonna turn into $5.
mm,
You understand?
yeah.
But then if it's a social cause, if maybe it's about cancer, or it's sickness, and then that can be donation based. That's why you see there are different crowdfunding platforms. There are the ones for donations, for example, GoFundMe, but there are also the ones for businesses. Getfunding.com. Those are gogetfunding.coms. Those are for business. They are It's the for-profit oriented businesses. And when I put my money there, I want to be able to retain to
Mm.
have a retainer.
So you think it should be equity based, right?
Equity based, exactly. Yes.
But in this world, or in Africa, where today we're pushing about, we're saying that, oh, let's help our businesses grow. Let's let African businesses do well, private sector and all of that. I am thinking that then it should be donation based.
if it's if it's a profit if it's a profit mechanism, I do believe that it's I believe in the capital markets. I
Mm,
believe in a capital system.
right.
Um, I don't believe in a grant system. I believe that if I get money from someone, I have to be accountable with that money.
With that
So I
money.
need to have a retainer.
Mm,
I need to make sure I work very hard to give a retainer to that individual. Because at the end of the day, if it's a grant, then I don't have any. There's no accountability in terms of the retainer as compared to someone who has equity, someone who is expecting you to get back.
okay. Anyway, that was just by the way. Let's come back to the crowdfunding conversation proper. Now, one of the things that I know that crowdfunding depends on is trust.
Yes.
How can you build trust with strangers who are funding your business online? How can you do that?
Trust in business is built by users, by testimonies, by case studies. All right. So there's nothing called trust, just free trust that comes in business. So it's built by how many users have used your product or your
Mm,
business, and what are their testimonies, right? So it's like I said, it's all about validation. Have you validated the business idea? Have you validated the business that you are doing? And to do that, you have to have testimonies. You have to have the users. Those users are the one that will breathe trust or credibility. And then
mm,
also getting things like accelerators and credible networks. Also, uh, you know, it's called brand association. Also breed trust, right? So
yeah.
you see that coming from accelerators or big accelerators like Startup Bootcamp, build this trust. In what you're actually doing as an entrepreneur or as a
Mm,
business person.
okay. All right. So which other platforms are there? I think when you were talking, you mentioned uh, go get fund me or something, right?
Yes, yes, correct.
Mm. Which other platforms are there just to help our listeners to go and check out some of them?
Yeah, so there are various platforms, crowdfunding platforms that you can. So some of these things, simply Google, you should be able to get it.
Mm.
I'm much familiar with Go Get Fund
Okay.
when it comes to the startup network.
Mm. Okay. All right. So apart from angel investors as an alternative, venture capital, crowdfunding, which other alternatives are there?
So there are also grants. You can apply for grants. Um, there are also accelerators, incubators. Some of these accelerators, incubators, they give a little bit of some monies that you can then use, to 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 fund your idea and take your idea to next stage. So I do understand also in Ghana you also have Nest, I believe. So joining these accelerators and incubators and also attending the pitch competitions and demo days will winning competitions and stuff can also be a source of funding for your business.
Mm. Okay. All right. So grants. Do you advise from where you sit as a business development coach, because you talked about the fact that when you put your money somewhere there should be returns. One of the
Yeah,
things with grants is that usually people go get the grants and they don't deliver on the job, or they
exactly.
don't do what they have to do. what
Yeah.
advice what advice would you give to or maybe first, maybe do you think that it's a good way for funding? a tough question, huh?
Yeah, very tough one. Depending on the mentality or the mindset of the entrepreneur,
Yeah.
uh, like it goes back again now to, do you have a growth mindset? Or do you want to grow as an entrepreneur? Because at the end of the day, you get the grant, you don't use it to, to gain momentum or to gain traction. That means you, you're not gonna go anywhere.
Mm.
So it's really very subjective. It can be good, but depending on the entrepreneur themselves.
Okay. All right. Okay. So we've talked about angel investors, venture capital, crowdfunding, and you've also mentioned grants as another source. One of the sources that I have come across or I have seen is bootstrapping
Yeah.
or self funding. You haven't spoken about that. Maybe we can touch on that briefly. When is
Well,
when
that's the best way to fund your business is to bootstrap.
to bootstrap? Huh?
Yeah, is to bootstrap, save money. It's actually a skin on the game, and some angel investors also look into that. So you can start there and then move now towards
Venture
angel investment.
capital and all of that.
Bootstrap, you save money. Um, you self fund yourself, through your own skin, basically. So we call it skin in the game. So that's the best way to actually,
Why is
fund
it
your
the
business.
best way?
It's the best way because I mean, you know that this is this is my money. I mean, the agent is always high. Uh, other than when you are given money, basically, for example, through a grant, your bootstrap. This is where your mouth is. We understand. So I mean, you can only understand the agency that comes with that. Is more tense as compared to um, you having a grant.
Okay, all right, Edison. Thank you very much. It's been a great conversation. Maybe your final thoughts before we go.
Yeah, so my final thought is that traction beats theory, right? So prove that your business work, right? And investors, they fund momentum, good ideas. Make sure you structure your startup like it's already investable. Formalize it, have a clear value proposition, go on the market. Customer validation is very important. Have your first customers through, for example, bootstrapping, and then now look into investment. Also, the visibility builds credibility. Be seen, be known. It's very important. Investors invest in your brand, so it's very good to be seen and be known.
All right. Okay, thank you very much, Edison. We're really grateful that you made time to share your insights with us this morning.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. It's been a privilege.
Okay, do enjoy the rest of your day. All right, so that was Edison. Edison Shumba is a business development coach. And he helped us have this conversation this morning right here on the Business Breakfast on Z. We've learned a lot about funding. Yeah, so don't put all your eggs into one basket. He says that there are several ways. You could look at angel investors, venture capital, crowdfunding, grants. All of these are ways that people are using to fund their businesses. And the scriptures say that for lack of knowledge, my people perish. I hope that your business doesn't perish anymore now that you know these. Just do a quick Google search, look for some crowdfunding platforms. Look for some angel investors there, and you can raise some good funds to support your business. Well, of course, it's been a great Monday edition of the Business Breakfast on Z, and we are back again tomorrow for more interesting conversations. You know, we are all about lifestyle, leisure, and business. We want to see your business do well, and that's why we had this conversation this morning. Please keep listening to us. My name is Nitrebi Hammond. I'll see you tomorrow, and when you think Ghana, please think Z. See you.